Coach Conversation. I'm Sally Ganga from College Coach. I hope you're doing as well as possible in this very stressful time for our nation and the world. There's a lot of uncertainty, but we're here to try and answer your questions about college admissions and college success as best as we can in this changing landscape. For our second segment, Alex Gonzalez, College Coach Finance Consultant, will be telling me about finding scholarships based on major. For my third segment, I'll be talking with Sarah Calvert-Kubrum, College Coach expert who came to us a couple years ago from Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon. She'll be sharing her advice on creating a summer schedule for high school seniors. She's very organized, so you'll want to hear her tips on this. But first, I'm really excited to have as my guest Michael Delman, author, CEO, and founder of Beyond Booksmart, the nation's largest executive function coaching agency. He's here to talk about executive function skills, essential for success in high school and beyond. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Sally. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. So I'm going to admit to you that I did not know what executive functioning meant until I'd say I was probably around 30 or so. So like I'd been in admissions for a while at that point. I think when I heard it too, I thought, well, we're talking about like the skills that a CEO of a Fortune 500 company needs, but it's clearly not that. So let's go ahead and start with a definition.
Sure. So basic idea, these executive function skills are self-management skills. So these are the skills that reside in the front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. If this is your hand as a model, can be made into a model of the brain. If you fold it over, they're the skills right here. This is the prefrontal cortex. This is the amygdala, or the fight or flight, anxiety kind of reaction, fear reaction. These are the skills right here that allow us to plan things out and to focus and to choose what we're doing so that we make good conscious decisions. So those skills, and people need them all the time. They develop until about age 25 to 29.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was age 29 when they finally matured to a reasonable point of view. Other than that, it was fly by the seat of my pants a lot. So, so let's get more into the details then. Like, what are some of the basic skills that students need for success?
Well, whether they're finishing up high school or making their way into early years of college, there are 5 skills that I think I would particularly direct everyone to think about. The first is self-regulation and emotional regulation. So managing emotions and behavior so we don't interfere with goals and we're able to achieve our goals. The second has to do with attention and focus, especially sustained attention over a longer period of time on things that might not be enjoyable or preferred. The third is time management, which includes time awareness and then how to prioritize and how to plan. And the fourth one is organization, whether it's to do with kind of materials or whether it has to do with organization of ideas. And the fifth one is the ability to self-monitor and to adjust based on the feedback that's coming in. There are plenty of others, working memory and processing speed, yada, yada, yada. But these 5 are skills that are very much within people's control and the ability to get better at. So we tend to focus on those quite a bit at my company.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying here, that these are skills that people can control and get better at, because I think when I was growing up, I thought, well, I'm just not that organized. Like, luckily, I'm reasonably smart, so I can kind of just do things at the last minute. But I never thought about in a concrete way trying to work on these. So hopefully you can kind of go through and talk about how to really acquire those skills and work on them.
Yeah. Well, let me maybe take them one at a time. So, beginning with the idea of self-regulation and emotional regulation, and it comes back to this model of the brain. So when we get stressed out, we, as certain neuropsychologists talk about, we flip our lid, and there's a disconnect between the prefrontal cortex. It gets hijacked by the amygdala. So we're not rational. We can't actually plan things out or think rationally. So instead, we're forced to just kind of behave in a reactive manner. We don't get done what we want to get done. Obviously, you can imagine a kid sitting down to do their homework in high school or in college, looking at it, freaking out, and then just avoiding it, putting aside because it's just too stressful. Or maybe another example, a student getting really anxious or frustrated with or angry with a particular teacher, and then saying, I'm not gonna work hard for them. They don't like me. I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
I had a student one time who said, you know, I learned something from this teacher. I learned at the end of the year, I'm done with her, but I'm never done with the grade that she gave me. And it was such a mature realization that she had that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, getting past our emotional reaction to people and realizing, no, it's worth it to me to slow down, take a
Mm-hmm.
breath. We call it sometimes 5-finger breathing. If you're breathing in and breathing out as you trace your fingers up and down. And you can do that under your desk during a math exam, and it will help calm you down. So that's kind of a tool to manage this kind of critical first layer skill.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help a little? Because that skill really, without self-regulation and emotional regulation, we're kind of a victim to our own impulses and our emotions instead of being able to make good choices in our lives.
I think that's great. It's interesting. I talked to a student once who said, I mean, luckily she liked her math teacher, but she hated math. She was
Mm.
one of those students who had convinced herself that she was terrible at math and math hated her. And,
Uh,
you know, and the teacher, I guess, spent a lot of time kind of, clearly this was a remarkable teacher, and she really worked with her on that emotional side. And so the student said to me, I've realized I need to make friends with math. And if I can make friends with math, then I
a
can
good
just
way to
keep
put it.
working on it until I understand what I need to know. And I was like, that is so wonderful.
It's
Like,
funny.
understand the good parts.
I love the way you said it, because so much of places where we've made decisions and we don't have a growth mindset and we say, I'm done, I can't do that. Uh, a lot of that is an emotional resistance. It's not just an intellectual challenge.
Mhm,
We've added a layer of, I can't, you know, I'm stupid, that kind of
mhm,
thing. So regulating and being able to manage that is kind of the first stage. Really, the second stage has to do with attention and being able to focus. And with that, we've got the obvious, which is checking our phones all the time and always being kind of the victims of whatever distractions come
mhm,
our way, and those aren't going to stop. We're living in a world where the distractions are better than they were when we were younger. They are constant. They are designed to distract us and to grab our attention and hold on to it. And then by contrast, the things that we're supposed to do just aren't quite as thrilling and exciting. So being able to manage that is obviously, it's a bit like building up a muscle. It takes some endurance, takes some practice and some skills. And so I would offer one or two solutions here. There's the easy solution, which is get a less comfortable chair. And don't study by the bird feeder, where we got all the Blue Jays and the Cardinals flying in and out. But the harder solution is one about being active while studying and kind of being more of a detective than, say, a factory worker that just takes whatever's in front of you. What happens is we get sleepy, and because we're not active, we're not
mhm,
engaged. And just like you and I are like reading each other, and we're paying
mhm,
attention to each other right now. I heard your question, your comment. We're in tune with each other. You can get in tune with your work, actually, and actually argue with the text as you're reading something that you're supposed to be paying attention to, saying, does that make sense? Do I agree with that? Why am I reading this? What does it mean? Why does it matter? All those kinds of things. Those are active reading strategies that make a big difference. And same thing for studying. Why does it matter? What does it mean? Do I get it? Those kinds of questions that are, kind of locked down and get the attention moving. Um, Shall I go on to time management? Do you want me?
Yeah, let's go on to time management. Yeah.
All right. Well, I love time management, and I'm also practicing time management, being aware of our time that we've
Yeah.
got. So time management, it's not just that you need to have the right tool for the job. You actually need to put the right amount of effort into the job, depending on how important the job is. And so for students, unfortunately, they've been sometimes bullied into or brainwashed into believing that everything that the teacher says is super important, or at least the teacher says things like, don't ask if it's on the test. I said it's important. It's actually not unreasonable for a student to think, and maybe even to say, will this be on the test?
Mhm,
At least to think it, or to try to figure that out,
mhm,
because ultimately they've got limited time and they're busy people. in a lot of ways. And so one exercise that I like students to do is called the budget versus the actual. And so it's to make time estimates for what do you think an assignment will take. For example, reading or studying for a test or working on section whatever of a paper, and then to check how long it actually took and to compare the two. This is not necessarily to become, immediately excellent at guessing right. It's not that it's bad if you get it wrong. It's that now
Mm-hmm.
oh, that didn't take as much time. And so, we get students who underestimate and they wait because they waited too long because they thought it wouldn't take very long. So we say, wait, too late. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of their motto in life. Like, oh, wait, too late. And then it becomes anxiety now. And the others who overestimate, and it makes them so anxious to see how long they think it's going to take, that they don't even start because they're kind of defeating themselves by their perfectionism before they've even begun. So
Mm-hmm.
we want to make sure that students are thinking, how important is this? How long do I think it will take? How long did it actually take?
Mm-hmm.
And those really matter, those three questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you tell me if you want me to
No,
pause
like
or,
I wanted to follow up on that. I feel like you've really touched on something that takes us back to self-regulation, emotional regulation, because you mentioned, I run into so many students and I can somewhat relate to this where you're overestimating how much time it's going to take and it just becomes stressful, but yet you're not doing it. And one of the things that, again, like I'm using myself because I had this super organized sister and I was a procrastinator and it wasn't like I was having a great time procrastinating. I was stressing out and actively avoiding it, but I wasn't actually enjoying myself. So,
awesome, well put. I had a student one time, Sally, I asked him, so you told me you didn't do the homework over the weekend. Okay, so did you think about it over the weekend? He said, yeah. I said, a little. He said, no. I said, how many times? Like 3 or 4. He said, about 30. Like, it was on my mind pretty
mhm,
much the whole weekend. And I asked him how long the homework realistically would have taken. He said, honestly, 30 or 45 minutes. But he spent the whole weekend worrying about it. So,
mhm,
again, bad time management leads to stress, which leads to avoidance, which leads to, of course, more stress. And it's a vicious cycle. Um, and just the other two I thought I would mention is about
mhm,
organization, because I know people care a lot about that. How do you create order out of chaos and all the materials and ideas? And I think it's just, there's no one system. You can have color coding and you can have different filing systems, but the main thing is to try a system that works for you. And I had a student one time who said, I'm not going to use an assignment notebook. I'm tired of my parents pushing me on that. And I said, well, what's your system? He said, well, the teachers post it every day. It's online. I said, okay, so that works for you? He said, well, except English. The teacher doesn't post for that. So I said, well, what do you do there? He said, well, I write it in my assignment notebook then. So he wasn't opposed to having a system. It just had to
mhm,
make sense to him. So we need that. The very last thing I'll just mention is about metacognition, which is kind of the master key. It's the one gets you into all the others. It's about self-monitoring and self-awareness, knowing what you know and don't know. And for students, whether in high school or college, knowing to go in for office hours, asking yourself, do I know it? Do I not know it? Or do I not even know if I know it? Is
mhm,
it possibly a blind spot? Go on in, meet with that teacher, find out if you're on track or off track. And, that allows you to develop systems and to follow through and to become a good self-advocate, because as you learned, and you mentioned in some of your comments, and we've all learned, it's not about getting everything right away. It's about learning over the course of time. And if you have good self-awareness, which is such a critical executive function skill, it allows you to develop the other executive function skills. So having that cognitive flexibility to dive in, dive out, see the big picture of yourself is kind of the master key of it all.
mhm. And so
So I hope
that,
that's a helpful start.
yeah, no, that was really helpful. And I liked what you said about kind of realizing that maybe you don't know everything and that's okay. And so then you just go ask for help, but like being able to dive back and look at that. When I work with students who I'm a little like concerned about their success in college, one of the things I say to them is, look, plan on going to the writing center, even if you don't think you need it. Just go to the writing center. Just make sure everything's fine. If you're in a math class and you've, historically struggled with math, or maybe you haven't, and it's just college and it's probably going to be harder than what you're used to, that's okay too. Just go
Right.
to the math center. So I always try and promote those sorts of strategies.
Right. So I'm glad you gave me a chance to talk with you today. And I'll just mention that, I did write a book about this. It's called Your Kid's Gonna Be Okay. So if people are interested, they could just go on Amazon, or my company's Beyond Booksmart. They can go there and get access to a link if they want to learn more specific strategies. Um,
Okay.
but it's been great talking to you. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for
great
having me.
talking to you too. Thank you so much.
Real pleasure.
All right, great. And so now, everyone, we're going to be taking a short break, but when we return, I'll be talking with Alex Gonzalez about merit scholarships based on major.